The old patron did not interfere, for he too had recognized the superiority of Dante over his crew and himself. He saw in the young man his natural successor, and regretted that he had not a daughter, that he might have bound Edmond to him by a more secure alliance. At 7 o'clock in the evening all was ready, and at 10 minutes past 7 they doubled the lighthouse just as the beacon was kindled. The sea was calm, and, with a fresh breeze from the southeast, they sailed beneath a bright blue sky, in which God also lighted up in turn his beacon lights, each of which is a world. Dante told them that all hands might turn in, and he would take the helm. When the Maltese, for so they called Dante, had said this, it was sufficient, and all went to their bunks contentedly. This frequently happened. Dante, cast from solitude into the world, frequently experienced an imperious desire for solitude. And what solitude is more complete or more poetical than that of a ship floating in isolation on the sea during the obscurity of the night, and in the silence of immensity, and under the eye of heaven? Now this solitude was peopled with his thoughts, the night lighted up by his illusions, and silence animated by his anticipations. When the patron awoke, the vessel was hurrying on with every sail set, and every sail full with the breeze. They were making nearly 10 knots an hour. The island of Monte Cristo loomed large in the horizon. Dante resigned the lugger to the master's care, and went and lay down in his hammock. But, in spite of a sleepless night, he could not close his eyes for a moment. I was at Barnes & Noble the other day, and I had picked up a book that was nominated for the Pulitzer. I think I know which one it was, but I don't want to misspeak, so I'm not going to name the title. Doesn't really matter. The point being that I noticed something while reading it that I'm not sure is true, but it feels true to my experience, which is every book in like the last 10, 15 years that I've read nominated for the Pulitzer or that has won the Pulitzer has had this very kind of distant way of telling the story. Very short, simple sentences as a kind of like observational thing. Someone watching characters or situations like in a petri dish. And I wondered why that became the modern like literary style. Because when you look at that compared to this, Dumas is doing something so vastly different than that. And I wonder why this has fallen out of style. I mean, yes, it's a long book this way. It fills out 1,500 pages. And that's not, I think, what a lot of contemporary books want to do. But specifically what I'm talking about is the way he kind of pairs realism and poetry together, or like just maybe to be less pretentious about it, just a more flowery way of writing that evokes more. I use the word evoke a lot on here, and I realize that, but I think it's because I don't read a lot of evocative literature outside of this book. A lot of modern stuff is pretty like straightforward. Now, what I'm talking about specifically is like when he says the silence of immensity or beacon lights in the heavens. There's another one here that really got to me here. Like this sentence here. Well, I'll read half the sentence. And what solitude is more complete or more poetical than that of a ship floating in isolation on the sea during the obscurity of the night, in the silence of immensity, and under the eye of heaven? Like, I feel like a modern book would just write, the ship floated toward the horizon with the night sky spanning above. You know, like just really on the nose, this is what you're seeing. So I'm not saying this is good or bad in either direction. I'm just wondering why this type of writing has fallen out of style. Is it because, you know, as readers, we, you know, over time have wanted easier things to read? You know, we want to read it at an airport. We have second screen experiences all the time. We got to fit it in where we can. Maybe that reading itself is not a novelty the way that it used to be. You know, not everyone could read, especially when this was written. So to read was a pleasure, and we got something out of that. And now it's like, okay, yeah, as a society, we don't look at reading as a novelty anymore. And therefore, what's the quickest way I can convey the story I want to tell? I don't know. I mean, like I'm sure there are much smarter people than me that can elucidate on this, but it's just something I noticed, and I'm like, I'm glad, I guess, that both exist, but why has this died off entirely? And maybe it hasn't. You know, like I read a lot, but clearly I can't read everything. So maybe there's the stuff that's out there, and people, you know, there's a niche audience for it. Maybe. I don't know. If you know of any modern stuff that is written with this sort of poetical lens, shoot it my way. I'd be curious to check out a modern thing that isn't so straightforward. And I guess I want to end this episode by saying, you know, I'm not trying to blanket statement anything. I'm sure there was more straightforward writing back, you know, in 1844, the mid 1800s when this story was written. And I'm sure there's a lot of poetical stuff now written as well that I'm just not, you know, exposed to. So again, this is all just through my silly observation and my experience. Is there anything from this passage we want to acknowledge? The last thing I'll kind of mention, though I feel like there's probably going to be room to mention this later, is just how much the crew, including the captain, have really taken to Dante and wanting to like bow to his superiority. It's a little strange that there's no conflict there at all. Even the captain's like, oh yeah, this dude, he's the good guy. This dude, we all need to bow down to him. I wish I had a daughter so that, like, I could be his daddy. That was a weird way I phrased that. I apologize to everyone. But, you know, like, Dante proved himself with one kind of ride around the Mediterranean, and now he's basically helming the ship for his own, and everyone's listening to him. So, interesting. That's interesting. Well, let's find out what happens more with this crew as we continue through chapter 23. Until tomorrow, okay, goodbye. The Countdown of Monte Cristo is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. This show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Theme song by Magic Solo. If you want to support the show and others like it, visit patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.